My dad discovered $25,000 hidden beneath my mattress. I used it for your sister's wedding, he said. Think of it as a present from you. I just stared at him and said, got it. 2 minutes later, my grandfather entered and asked, son, the cash I entrusted to you. Where is it? Dad's face turned white. I grinned, whispered something to Grandpa, and watched him reach for his phone. Soon after, there was a knock at the door. I was 27, still renting the same modest 2-bedroom apartment I'd had since trade school. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I worked long hours as a licensed electrician, so I rarely went out. I didn't splurge on trips or new vehicles. Every extra penny went into cash savings, not in a bank, but stashed under my mattress. Yes, I know, it sounds overly cautious. But after years of lending money to family that was never repaid, I wanted no trace of it. That cash was my safety net, my escape plan if things went south. So, when I came home one Saturday to find Dad at my kitchen table, wearing that sly grin he always had when he thought he'd outwitted me, I knew trouble was brewing. Son, he began, leaning back in my chair like he owned the place, your sister's wedding was a massive hit. Everyone loved it. I frowned. That's nice. What's that got to do with me? He gave a casual shrug, the kind that always preceded something outrageous. I found the money under your mattress. 25 grand. I spent it on the wedding. Think of it as your gift to your sister. I just looked at him. You did what? Come on, he said, waving a hand like I was overreacting. It was just sitting there. Family supports family. She'll always remember this. My jaw clenched, but I kept my voice steady. Got it. I didn't shout. Didn't demand repayment. I just stood there, face blank. 2 minutes later, my grandfather walked in. He held his cane, his eyes as sharp as ever despite being in his 70s. Son, he said to Dad, the money I gave you to hold. Where is it? Dad froze. His face lost all color. I smiled, leaned in, and whispered a few words to Grandpa. His face hardened instantly. Without another word, he pulled out his phone and started dialing. 30 seconds later, there was a knock at the door. A man in a dark suit stepped inside and quietly placed a thick folder on my kitchen table. Let me explain how things got to the point where Dad thought taking $25,000 from me was no big deal. I grew up in a family where family supports family was less a principle and more a one-sided demand. My sister, Claire, is 2 years younger, but you'd think she was fragile the way my parents coddled her. Her problems became everyone's crisis. My achievements? Barely noticed. I learned early that I wasn't just a son, I was the family's provider. I started working construction at 18, putting in extra hours, saving, hoping to get ahead. But every time I made progress, some urgent family need arose. Dad's truck needed repairs. I paid. Mom's hospital bill? Covered it. Claire wanted to launch a wellness business, selling overpriced candles online. Guess who funded her stock? And they never asked politely. It was always implied I owed them. As Dad loved to say, we gave you life. It's not much to ask in return. Over time, I got wiser. I stopped keeping large sums in my bank account where they could guilt me into transferring it. That's how the cash under the mattress began. It wasn't about dodging taxes or anything shady. It was about keeping my money where only I could access it. That $25,000 wasn't extra cash. It was my lifeline. Years of side jobs, weekend gigs, overtime bonuses. It was my ticket out of this cycle. Claire's wedding was a spectacle from the start. She wanted a dream day, far beyond what she and her fiancé could afford. A waterfront venue, live music, exotic flowers. The whole thing cost nearly $60,000. I assumed they'd cut back. Instead, every time they hit a budget limit, Dad magically found a way. Now it's clear, he'd been eyeing my savings all along. I just didn't think he'd go that far. The worst part? Claire didn't even work full-time. She had a part-time job at a boutique, posted about hustling on social media, but spent more time planning the wedding than earning money for it. And my parents just enabled it, saying a wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event, and family makes it happen. Meaning, I'd make it happen. Grandpa's the wild card. He's Dad's father, old school, worked his whole life in logistics, built his wealth from scratch. He values every dollar and doesn't waste it. A few months back, he sold some land and gave Dad $25,000 in cash to hold temporarily. Said he didn't trust banks and was sorting out estate matters. I didn't know this until Grandpa walked into my apartment that day. The wedding gift Dad claimed he took from me? It wasn't just mine. It was a mix of my savings and Grandpa's cash. Dad must have found my stash while looking for his, saw it was nearly the same amount, and decided to combine them. Dad's always been sure he can talk his way out of anything, especially with family. He uses the same tactic every time. Guilt, minimization, then denial if you push back. When I was younger, I'd cave just to avoid the drama. But lately, I'd had enough. And here's where things escalate. Because Grandpa doesn't fall for family supports family speeches. I've seen him cut off business partners over $500 and a lie. The moment he asked Dad about the money I gave you to hold and saw his reaction, I knew Dad was in trouble. That folder the man in the dark suit brought? I had a good idea what was inside. Receipts? Contracts? Maybe something legal. Grandpa doesn't play games. Until that moment, I'd always been the one quietly taking the hit, staying silent to keep the peace. But seeing Dad's face pale, realizing he might actually face consequences, that's when I decided this wasn't going to just blow over. For the first time, the burden wasn't mine alone. It was his. And I was ready to let him feel what I'd been carrying for years. Grandpa didn't hesitate. He opened the folder right there on my kitchen table. Inside were photos of the cash stacks he'd given Dad, a signed note from Dad confirming he was holding the money, and my stomach dropped, a printed text exchange where Dad swore to keep it safe until the estate issues were resolved. Dad's eyes flicked between me, Grandpa, and the man in the suit. Dad, it's not what it seems. Grandpa cut him off. It's exactly what it seems. You took money that wasn't yours. And from what I hear, you took your son's money too. Dad's face twisted. That's an overstatement. It was just lying there. I thought. No, I said, stepping in. My voice was calm, but I was furious inside. You didn't think. You chose. You chose your daughter's flowers and cake over me having a safety net. You decided that 25 grand wasn't doing anything important under my mattress. So why not take it? Dad turned on me quick. You've been stashing cash while your sister needed help. And you couldn't even offer? Family supports family. I almost laughed. That line's worn out. I've been supporting this family since I got my first paycheck. You've bled me dry for years. And the one time I keep something for myself, you steal it. Steal? You're calling your own father a thief? His voice rose, the same intimidation he'd always used. But this time, I didn't back down. Yeah, that's what it's called when you take something that's not yours without permission. Grandpa leaned in. Where's the money now? Dad paused too long. It's gone, he finally admitted. Deposits. Vendors. Non-refundable wedding expenses. Grandpa's jaw tightened. Then you'll replace it. Every penny. With interest. Dad looked like he'd bitten into something sour. You can't just demand. I can, Grandpa snapped. That cash was mine. The fact you also took from your son? That's between you two. But you'll make me whole, or I'll ensure everyone in the family, and the law, knows exactly what you did. That was the first time I'd seen Dad cornered. He looked at me, expecting me to step in and soften the blow. Not this time. Just so we're clear, I said, I want my 25 grand back too. I don't care if you sell your car or cancel the honeymoon. I'm done acting like this doesn't matter. Dad tried one last tactic. The guilt trip. Do you really want to ruin your sister's big day? Do you want her wedding tainted because you're making a fuss? I stared at him. You tainted it for me when you took the money. The wedding's not my problem. Getting my money back is. The man in the suit, silent until now, spoke up. I'll prepare the repayment agreement. Miss the deadlines, and legal action follows. I advise you to take this seriously. Dad opened his mouth, but Grandpa stood, cutting off whatever excuse was coming. We're done here. You'll hear from him with the details. He nodded at me. And you. Good work standing firm. About time. They left together. The man with the folder. Grandpa with his steady stride. Dad sat at my table, deflated, for a long moment before muttering, You didn't have to drag him into this. I grabbed my jacket. You dragged him into it when you touched his money. You just didn't think you'd get caught. As I walked out, I felt something new. Not just anger, but power. For once, the consequences weren't mine to bear. They were his. And I wasn't going to lift a finger to help him out of it. That day, though, I simply said, Got it, and let the trap snap shut around him. That's what I'm proud of. Not just because it got my money back, though it did, but because it showed I could handle things without losing my temper or giving in. It's a different kind of power. Since then, a few family members have pulled me aside quietly. They've shared their own stories about Dad, promises broken, loans unpaid, favors taken for granted. They all say the same thing. I wish I'd pushed back sooner. It's odd how many people see what's going on but choose not to challenge it. Because keeping things calm feels simpler in the moment. I understand. I lived that way for years. But now I see that peace built on being used isn't peace at all. If there's one lesson I've taken from this, it's this. You're not a bad son, brother, or family member for refusing to be exploited. Those who truly value you will respect your limits. The ones who see you as a resource will get mad when you stop giving. And that anger just proves you made the right choice. Now, when I see the key to my safe deposit box on my counter, it means more than it used to. That cash isn't just money anymore. It's a symbol that I don't owe my family my financial stability, my peace, or my future just because we're related. I've given enough of my life to keeping others afloat. Now, I'm swimming for myself. And the best part? I don't just feel free of guilt. I feel something I never thought I'd feel about all this: pride. One more thing I tell myself when doubts sneak in. I didn't pick a fight. I picked boundaries. That distinction matters. When Dad tried a subtle reset last month, stopping by with a "we miss you" dinner invite, I set a clear rule. We meet in public, and money, favors, or Claire's drama are off limits. He agreed. We met at a diner. No lectures, no schemes. We talked about sports, my job, Grandpa's garden. Then the bill came, and he paused, waiting for the old me to step in. I let the silence do the talking. He paid. We parted on polite terms, not close, and that was fine. Walking home, I felt unburdened, like I'd finally shed a role I'd played for years. Maybe that's what closure is, the moment you stop trying to fit a part you never wanted. I got home, locked the safe deposit key away, and slept better than I had in years. The next morning, I booked a weekend getaway. Nothing extravagant, just a quiet lake. I paid with my own card, packed light, and left my phone on silent. No crises followed. That was the proof.